This is Master Your Mindset with Coach Mark.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Organized Chaos Podcast with me, your host, Teresa Hildebrand. No, guys, welcome back to another episode. I'm not going to edit that out. I got a really powerful episode for you guys today. This is actually going to be not only on my podcast, Master Your Mindset with Coach Mark, but it's also going to be on Teresa, my wife's podcast, Organized Chaos with Teresa. And I've always wanted to start off a podcast like that because she hates it when I'm goofy, but she brings out the real Mark. You'll get to actually an opportunity to see this today. But the reason why we put this together, we were having this conversation, and being husband and wife, having our own business, and now me leaving my full-time job. She used to work at UCLA Medical Center full-time. She left to become home and become a coach while I continued to work LAPD, and now I'm retiring, and we're both going to be like stay-at-home. I don't know what that is. Stay-at-home spouses. I don't know. It's going to be like a new word or new phrase. But we've learned a lot through this process over the last 10 years of being in business with your actually being married to your business partner. And so we wanted to really break down our 6 biggest lessons that we learned that will help you, whether you are somebody who you have a business and you are married to your business partner, or you have a business and your significant other is just helping out, or even if you are just married and you have a business, this will also be impactful, because we're really going to share with you some of the ways that you could use your business to actually make your relationship stronger. One of the things that I constantly think about is, like, instead of it being an or situation, it's always an and situation, all right? So it's not you can only be better in one or the other. It's like, how can you actually, because you're doing both of those, become better at both of them? And that's the and situation. So that being said, before we jump into this, Teresa, do you want to introduce yourself real quick? For my podcast, because obviously if people are listening to your podcast, they know who you are. But for my podcast, why don't you intro?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Teresa Hildebrand, and I am a mom of 2, and I am home with my kiddos they're almost done with school. So that'll be fun because I work from home. So I help mom entrepreneurs be happy, healthy, and confident with intentionality so they could create harmony between their life and business. I have many years that I struggled through that, and I feel like I have a lot to share, because you can juggle everything that you're juggling in a way that is still healthy, that you're still taking care of yourself, and you're still spending time with your family, and you can still have a blooming business. So. Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait to actually pull that out. I mean, I'm not going to get into my 3. And here's the thing, like, how we set this up is I told Teresa to pick her 3 biggest lessons, and I was going to pick my 3 biggest lessons, and we weren't going to talk about them until we were here live. I don't know, maybe they're going to be very, very similar, but I also didn't want any of us to be swayed based off of that and go, oh, I really like that one. I really like people to kind of like just hear it from our heart. But one of the things that kind of like brought up, just that, even that introduction that you just did, is just like how powerful personal development and personal growth can be in your lives. And when you are like enveloped into personal development, personal growth, being an online coach, being an online course creator, like literally we can't progress in our business unless we progress further in our life. Like when we realize that the actual internal transformation has to happen before the outside, it's just a totally different game than, I would say, me being a police officer. Being a police officer is very hard. It's very stressful situations, but I don't have to necessarily become a better person in order to become a better police officer, even though that does sound nice, right? But when it comes to your business, when you reach a certain level, you have to figure out, like, how can I grow? How can I just become the type of person who has a 6-figure, 7-figure, or makes this kind of huge impact, gives big speeches, right? You have to become that person. And I think personal development is that key that we have. But when you have it and you're both doing that in your marriage, with your connection with your kids, or anything, like getting them involved in personal development, it's like exponential growth, right? Which is probably what we're going to hear about today, is like me growing on my path and Teresa growing on her path, and us kind of coming together, and her being my coach, believe it or not. Her being
Is
my
that your
coach,
first lesson? Is that your first lesson?
No, it's not. So that was just something that kind of came up after you kind of like just shared that. So let's do this. Let's get into these top 6 tips. So you give one, kind of give an explanation. Maybe I'll bounce some different things too. And then I'll give one, and we'll go back and forth until we're done all 6, and we'll go from there. Okay. So what would you say is one of the biggest lessons that you learned from being married to your business partner?
Okay. So one of them is to identify your strengths and also understand your personalities. What was that one?
Damn, you got me.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if all three is like pretty much the same. But okay, so identifying your strengths and really kind of letting each other shine in those strengths. Because I think that at the beginning, when we first started, really Mark started with the business at first, and then I kind of followed along. But I think that one of the things we actually struggled with was not knowing where both of us, where some of our strengths were. So as you can probably see, Mark is really good at doing videos and training. Like, he's excellent at that. And I'm not super comfortable still to this day, even though I've done tons of videos and I have my own podcast. That doesn't feel like my strength. So I have other strengths. So it's kind of like really identifying what you enjoy, what you feel you're really good at, and then really building those up, and then just coming together and just creating something really amazing.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot. I want you to tell them, what are your strengths? What are your strength zones?
I think kind of looking at different possibilities, like seeing things from a different perspective. And I don't know, I also think that maybe I'm like more of the creative one. And because I mean, we do this kind of like on the back end sometimes where, if you need something that needs some type of artsy, creative stuff, workbook or whatever, I really love that. So I love doing it. It's something even my daughter likes to do, so she probably got that from me. But I mean, I like doing that. So he comes to me with some of that kind of stuff. So I think maybe creativity and then just kind of seeing things from a different perspective.
I love it. I love it. I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say you're great at seeing all the pieces and then putting it together like in a very easily, not only digestible, but like a pretty kind of way. I mean, that's the reason why, like, most people don't know this, but a lot of the things that you do, or a lot of the workbooks, like let's say that Josh even has, Josh Coates, our mentor, a lot of that has been your creation because you're so great at doing that, seeing this total picture and then pulling out the pieces that you just need and then putting it into a way that not only like is appealing to the eyes, but it actually just gets you right into those specific things. I mean, when I wrote my book, one of the things I said is like, hey, it's time for you to hook me up now and help me create a workbook. And you did an awesome job. And I was like, I would have never been able to think that. So I love that you said that. And the strength zone was my number 2. So I guess we're not going to necessarily have 6. But I can tweak it a little bit. But I love that. I definitely love that is like playing to your strengths, right? So I think about that all the time too, is like when I take on something, right? If I take on, like right now I'm thinking I'm creating a new group, right? And when I'm thinking about that, I'm like, okay, what pieces are in my strength zone? So like creating the curriculum, creating like the core values of the group, the pillars of the group, right? Following Josh's procedure from A all the way to Z that he has in the 6-day sprint, right? You just like jumping in there and creating that stuff is my jam, right? Giving the trainings, doing that stuff, coaching people. But then there's the other pieces that, number 1, I don't really like doing, and number 2, you're like way better at it. And I kind of feel like I'm bugging you when I ask you to, but I'm like, I know it's going to be 10 times better, and it's going to be so much more easily digested, because if I put something together, it would be like overflow. So really, like you said, working and playing with our strengths, right? And not forcing it, right? Not forcing it, going, you know what? He's better or she's better at this. Let me ask them to do it. And it doesn't require you to be in business with them either, right? It could just be that you're married and you just have your own business, but your significant other is really good at doing something that's different than what you're doing. Like, employ them. Like, say, hey, could you really help me out with this? Because you're really great at doing this. My guess is more times than not, they're going to say yes and absolutely jump in. All right. So that was a really, really great takeaway. All right.
Yeah. Before you move on, I want to go back to something that you said at the beginning about the personal development, right? And that can be, even if you're not in business, like that's always helpful, right? Because it's going to improve your marriage, because sometimes we look for things, maybe not necessarily something that we're struggling with, but something that we do want to improve in our marriage, right? I mean, we've learned so much about ourselves, our personalities, and what we can do as a married couple because we've had a business. But I think eventually, at some point, we would have done that. And that is one of the beauties of having a business, is because it actually allowed us to kind of look and really focus on ourselves and then come together and create something really amazing. So also personalities. Got to understand people's personalities. I mean, we were even talking about this yesterday and kind of laughing about it. about the Enneagrams. So I've never really identified what my Enneagram is, and Mark hadn't either until yesterday. So I'm a 9 and he's a 2. So we were kind of looking at and it's mind-boggling to see like everything like yourself written down, and you know the types of things that you're prone to doing. But it's really cool because we can see how we can work together. So knowing like those little things, like what makes you tick, or what, how even beyond like the 5 love languages that we've done as well, like even deeper than that with the Enneagram is I'm excited about it because now he can kind of see like what my personality is like, which he knows, but now he kind of understands it better. And I could do the same with him, you know?
Mm-hmm. That was awesome. And I can go down a whole rabbit hole with that, like in terms of like the personal development and whatnot. And I know for me personally, like when I was not the husband that I wanted to be for you and not the father that I wanted to be for the kids, I took as much energy and effort that I do towards my business and personal growth as like becoming that person. So like I started surrounding myself with the mastermind. I started to buy books about how to become a better husband. 5 love languages came out of that, and so many different things that make me, I'm okay talking about it now, but at the time I kind of felt embarrassed. Like I'm like, really, like I'm reading a book about how to become a better husband. But at the same time, I was like, well, actually, I've spent so much time and energy on my business, on becoming a police officer, right? 995 or 996 hours in the academy before they allow you to leave. And then when you get out of the academy, you still don't know what you're doing. And so I was like, you know what, I got to put so much more time and energy and effort into that. And it doesn't have to just be personal development. So I just want to throw that out there too. Like you can actually like do something related to your connection with your spouse, and it will actually help you excel in business. Guys, if you have not heard me talk about it, I talk about family all the time. I talk about all the different ways that you can like really approach this. I have an awesome episode coming up for you guys really soon, talking about like how it does not take a lot of time to really create that connection with your family. And I do that. It's my business. I literally talk about relationships now. And it's because I thought about like, okay, well, how could I become better as a parent and a spouse, and also use that in my business too? And then the answers present itself, right? The answers present itself. Okay. So let's move on to the second one. Otherwise, this is going to be like a 90-minute podcast. It's going to be like a Joe Rogan podcast. All right. So my number one thing is your partner did not sign up to be your business coach.
I love that.
Your partner did not sign up to be your business coach. They also didn't sign up to be your fitness coach. They didn't decide to be any kind of coach. They decided to sign up because they love you and they wanted to marry you. One of the things I have to remind myself of all the time is that Teresa did not sign up to get me to life coach her when she's in the middle of something going on. I have that skill, but it does not mean that that's what she signed up for. As a matter of fact, like on times when I do want to help, I ask her. And she'll tell me, no, I don't want you to life coach. Or she'll be like, actually, I do want you to, right? And depending on whether she says is whether or not I lean into that. So one of the things that we can kind of do is we start to use the same tactics and tools that we've developed, that we've been able to help other people, help the people that are the closest to us. Because to be honest, like I care about Teresa more than anything on this planet. And so I want to do whatever I can to really help her. But sometimes it gets to the point where I'm like demanding or forcing or pushing. Okay. And when we're trying to do that, of course they don't like your business, right? Of course they don't, because you're trying to take whatever you're learning over here and you're trying to force it on them. All right. Now, there's ways that you can share it. You can share what some of the things that you've learned. You can share some of the things that you've gone through, but really realizing like, hey, they didn't sign up to be your business coach. They didn't sign up to be your fitness coach. They didn't sign up to be your beauty coach or whatever that is, right? And like reframing that, going, okay, they signed up to like love them forever, right? It's like till death do us part, for better, for worse, right? They didn't sign up to actually, just talk about business all the time or just do all this kind of stuff, right? So really getting able to go in there and reframe that and going, okay, I could still use my tools, but I have to get their permission first, all right? So I can use my tools, but I need to get their permission first. And if they don't give you permission, then guess what? So many times, the best thing that you need to do is just like listen. Is just be there, that ear that they need to, that can like reflect back some stuff. Like sometimes all they need is somebody to like hear what they're going through. There's so many people on the planet who are like that too. It's not just your significant other. They just want time, energy, and space. And if you can give that to them, that's the best gift that you can give them. And they didn't bring you a problem so that you can fix it. All right? They didn't bring you a problem so you can fix it. And if they want some advice, make sure you ask them. Okay? So that is tip number 1. Do you have anything you want to say on that?
No, it's I couldn't have said it better.
Well, actually, let me add one story to this, okay? Because this is like going to show it in action. So when we first got started with our health and fitness journey, back when we wanted to both lose weight, I was pushing Teresa all the time. Hey, we got to eat healthier. You got to go to the gym. Let's go to the gym and sign up. And like for 3 years, I think you went like 2 or 3 times. And to be honest, though, I was not showing up the way that I needed to show up. I was not eating right. I was going and I was trying to work out for like tons of hours. I didn't have like any structure around it. And it was this process of, instead of me pushing, I needed to just take a step back and model that behavior. And so, of course, we made that transition where it was like, hey, I'm going to be doing this new workout at home. And if that's something you want to do, totally cool, but I'm not going to force you to do it. If you want to, I'd love to spend some extra time with you. We can do it in the garage. If not, no worries at all. And that is what ultimately got her to start coming in, start taking exercising and start eating healthier and start doing this stuff, because I wasn't pushing. She didn't sign up to have me be her fitness coach, right? And so when I let down that guard and I just said, hey, I'm just going to model this behavior. And if she decides to join me, awesome. If she decides not to, I'm not going to make it mean something about me. I'm just going to make it mean that this just isn't for her. But just being able to do that invited her in. So I want to share that with you guys too, because like all these things that we're talking about today is because I've messed it up. Mostly it's been me that's messed it up and not her. But a lot of these things have been things that I've messed up that I want to really help you guys avoid. Or if you're doing them right now, you can make the adjustment there. So, okay, number 2, go for it.
Okay, number 2 for me is setting boundaries between work and home life, especially when, you're both in the business and it's not always about the business. Like, like you said, what you don't coach your spouse. That's not what they signed up for. It's like, yes, maybe we're business partners, but we don't always need to talk about business. I mean, we do have a life outside of our business. So setting those boundaries together, I think, is really important. I mean, you should set boundaries with every aspect of your life, right? You should set boundaries at work. You should set boundaries with family. Setting boundaries between the two of you it's okay to talk about business and when it's not okay. Like maybe it's not okay to talk about business at the dinner table when the kids are trying to tell us that they had a lot of fun and they want to tell us something amazing that happened at school. It's like, okay, maybe it's not time to talk about business, because I feel like sometimes we do that. And I mean, we're not saying these things is because we're masters at this and like we've perfected it. We're still going through it and we're still learning. Now we're more aware of when we do it, so we can stop ourselves and then take a different direction. So I think really setting those clear boundaries between the two of you, between both of us, is something that is important.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It actually goes right into point number 3. Like basically we're going to have I'm going to have to go back and change this podcast title. It's going to be like the 3 takeaways that we got because you're coming up with the same thing. So what I wrote down for number 3 was like, take time together outside of your business. Very, very similar. It's like, so guys, I created this business so that I can create more time and more space to spend with Teresa and my kids and to be present and to create a legacy. So that means that I need to spend that time to do that, right? I don't have to wait until a certain time happens. Like literally I can experience this moment. And how I do that is like Teresa says, it's like setting boundaries, like saying, hey, this is the work time. And this is like going to the coffee shop with Teresa, or this is just going out with the kids for a walk, or just doing whatever. And I get granular. Like Teresa knows this about me. I'm like very detail oriented. If you look at my journal, it has like a 30-minute breakdown of everything that I'm going to do in the time frames. And then some of those things, the things that I tend to forget, make it into my calendar. So when it's time to go on a walk with Andrew, like I don't forget. Why? Like, I know back in the day, I was like, why would I need to like put a reminder in my phone to like spend time with my kids or to tell them I love you or whatever? And I'm like, well, if it's important to me, it should probably go everywhere in the world because we're being distracted by so many different things. And so I take a different approach. It's like, hey, I got to put that time frame in there. Like if you look at my phone right now, it says date day on specific days that we already have talked about, because I'm going to be on vacation. When I'm on vacation, like I want to make sure like, hey, what are the days that I want to totally block out, because I just want it to be me and you, because the kids are going to be in school for the last week, right? And so really being on that page, setting up those boundaries, I'm not going to allow that to be infringed, right? That is actually even more important than my business meetings and my business calls and my mastermind calls. So really protecting that, but realizing that, hey, you know what? Like you can do things outside of your business together and not talk about it. And you can also have times when you do things with your business together and you can be on a podcast together and you can talk about it. Like, it's that structure. It's not saying that one way is bad or wrong. It's saying that you can excel at both. And if you have those structures in place and you say, hey, like, what are we going to do at this time and what are we going to do over here? And you have that like framework, it's going to allow you to be able to excel in all those things, right? Rather than just talking business all the time, which is sometimes my fault. Is like, I'm ready to talk business all the time. And it's like late at night and your brain is like, oh my God, like, I've got all these things that have been happening. The kids have been like just doing crazy stuff, fighting with each other and provoking. And you're like, I just can't think business right now, right? Even though I'm like, hey, can I brainstorm with you, right? Because like I said, Teresa's my coach. Like if I have a brainstorming question, what she said, she's creative. She thinks of different ways of doing things. So I'm like, hey, I'm ready to dive in, but she's not ready. And vice versa. I mean, that typically doesn't happen where vice versa. But there are times when I'm like, hey, I'm just not feeling so well, right? And so realizing that it's okay to not have time that you're speaking business, and it's okay to have time speaking business, but just being very clear of, like you said, using your chi method, being very intentional about just this specific thing is what we're doing right now. And all the outside things trying to come in, nope, that's not, they have their own time and space. This is time just for this. So that was my number 3. So
yeah, this is kind of a sidebar on that. When setting boundaries, like Mark said, he puts everything on his calendar. I'm doing that too, where my journal, it's like every single thing that I'm going to be doing, it gets put on my schedule because life is crazy. So we have to be reminded of the things that we have to do and making sure that we're blocking off the time that we need to in order to do the different tasks. But setting those boundaries is going to take care, as you can see, of time management issues that you may have. Because I know that a lot of people are like, how am I going to do this? There's so much going on. There's no way I can have a business, or I can, start a new hobby, or whatever it is that you want to do. It's like some of those things just take care of themselves as you go through the process of trying to do something else.
I love that. It's kind of like you don't have to have it all figured out, right?
Exactly.
You don't have to have it all figured out. I love that. I love it. Okay, so what's your last one?
The last one is understanding the ups and downs of business and how you're going to handle those situations together. Because if you decide that you're going to be married to your business partner, you gotta understand that it's going to be, sometimes there's going to be tension, and there's tension in every marriage, right? In different situations. But when you add on a business, there's another level of complexity that gets added on. So being an entrepreneur is up and down, up and down. It's never a straight line to success. So really kind of sitting down and understanding that and knowing, okay, when this happens, then this is how we're going to take care of it. This is how we're going to handle it together.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, when you think about the ups and downs of business and then the ups and downs of a relationship, I mean, it's the same thing, right? And you can kind of take one area and it starts to intermix with the other one, right? So that, I mean, it's so powerful to realize like, hey, we don't, number one, we don't necessarily have to do that all the time, but there's a different way, right? There's a different way of thinking about it and reframing it to make it so that it actually is like your guys' superpower. Okay. So I'll get to my third one. And it was the same as, I mean, all of mine, except for one, was the same as yours. But it was like talking about each other's strengths, but I also put and roles. And here's what I mean by this. Like, I try to do this a lot, and I need to get more into doing this in even more. But when you're business owners, there's certain other roles that you have, right? So for me, I have the dad hat. I have the husband hat. I have the police sergeant hat. I have all of these different hats. And what I see a lot of people doing is sometimes they're wearing their, career hat and they're wearing all these other things, and they think that the other person has a specific hat. They have expectations about what that person is doing and saying and all that kind of stuff, like helping out with the kids and all that kind of stuff. And instead of me just saying, hey, you know what, it's time for me to work business, or it's time for me to do X, Y, and Z, I like to ask you, hey, how can I help out with the kids right now? How can I help you put together whatever, a Facebook ad? Or how can I try to take over some of those things that will allow you to have the time and the space to not only work on your business, but kind of to take care of yourself too. Like, I'm constantly reminding you, I know now why I need to remind you as an Enneagram 9, right? Of hey, are you going to go get a mani-pedi? Are you going to go get a what do you call that? A massage. Like, are you going to go out and go shopping? Are you going to have a day? Because I want to remind you of like, hey, you got to really make sure you take care of yourself. But also with all the roles you have going on, if I can step in and I can say, hey, you know what? How about if I take the kids now? Or how about if I do this with the kids? Or how about I go to the pool with them and you just chill at home for a little bit? And I can see like, you're like, oh, that's such a relief. But for me, I always love to do that. And I hope that most other people are doing that too. So if you have a significant other and that person is in the business or not in the business, like sometimes saying, hey, you know what? Like, what could I do to help them? What could I do to actually make their life more easier today? Or what could I do to really like step into like maybe a role that really I can give them that chance of like recovering and really being able to care for themselves. And that is one thing that I try to do often is like ask, hey, is there something I can do? And here's the thing, like with Teresa, she won't tell me. Like she'll be like, no, I'm good. No, I'm good. But I can see some of the things that in the moments that I can step in and I just make the decision and say, hey, I'm going to take the kids to the pool. Do you want to come? And she's like, no. I'm like, all right, cool. So it's kind of like I actually do that on purpose because I know that's going to give her that time and that space that she needs. Because just asking her, being an Enneagram 9, she's like, oh, no, I'm okay. Like everything's fine, right? But I know and I can sense it sometimes where it's like, okay, it's time for me to step in, right? Like how the whole like massage thing, like you had never gotten a massage. And I'm like, I had told you like 10 times, like, hey, why don't you find a place to do massage, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, you know what? Like, I need to take action here to really like give her like, I don't know if it's like, I don't even know. It's not even permission, but saying like, hey, it's on the schedule. I called a place. They said you got to show up at this day and this time. You got to pick one of the extra things that they're going to do for you. And so I was able to kind of like set that up so that way you were like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is just something that I have to do. And of course you said, oh, that was so great. It was awesome when it was there. But sometimes we don't realize that we have that kind of ability of like seeing how we can actually help out our significant other, no matter what any of those roles are, because you'll be amazed how that reciprocates. Not that we have it in mind of, hey, it's going to reciprocate, but when you're like that, that's what happens in marriage. I mean, it becomes even stronger when you can sense that person, it's time for you to kind of step in and kind of take over. So I wanted to share that one with you guys too. What do you think about that one, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have to learn how to communicate a little bit better because, I mean, even this morning, I'll give you an example. This morning, so I normally take the kids to school in the morning, and Mark right now is off, so I won't tell him that I need help with the kids. I almost feel like it's like, okay, he's got to know that I'm drowning right now. He's got to know that these kids are driving me crazy. They're not listening to me. They're not doing this. And I was like, okay, like, is he going to say something? And that will go through my mind rather than me just saying, hey, can you help me today? Can you like help me get the kids' lunches ready? Because that'll take like a huge thing off my plate and then I'll just worry about them. Or can you get them up? They're not listening to me. You know, just telling him, like, that's all he wants, right? He wants me to just tell him he's not a mind reader. And that's still something that I struggle with and I'm working on it. But I mean, the overall message is communication, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think you're a little bit too hard on yourself because you do communicate, you just communicate in a different way. So you don't communicate to me directly, but like when I look over and I see and you're kind of like frantic today and you're like, I could just sense it. And I forget what it is that you said, but I was like, oh, do you want me to get the kids up? And you're like, yeah, could you do that? Or I think it was like doing their hair. Yeah, do you want me to get them upstairs? You're like, yes, could you do that? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm all game. And then I went out and kind of did that. But you do communicate. It's just not like a, hey, could you do me a favor? Could you do this kind of thing? You do but that's every once in a while.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's kind of like, I should just tell you, right? Because I think that it's more of, oh, I may be bothering him. You know, because I think you were going to record something. And I thought in my mind, like, really, right now, like, I'd kind of like your help. But why wouldn't I just say that? Maybe in a nicer way, because obviously I don't want to, like, start a fight or anything. But I should just tell you rather than just, like, giving you the look.
Well, starting a fight is funny. I remember, like, I mean, we arguing is kind of like, you know, it could be a positive thing, but I can't really remember times when we actually argued, and when we did, it was like in front of the kids. But I remember one time that we had like it was just a little disagreement, and Andrew was like, oh my God, like, are you guys getting a divorce? We're like, what are you talking about?
It was so
the
like
smallest thing.
yeah, it was so benign. It was like not even an argument. It was just funny, and we just started laughing because.
But I know there is some space and time and stuff, and that actually creates a better connection because us being married for 17 years really is we've learned how to navigate those things and bring both of our concerns to the table in a little bit different of a way, right? But it took a lot of struggle and a lot of messing up to do that. But yeah, I love that point. Thank you so much for that. And I do have one more that I'm going to add. This is like a bonus. This is going to be like the 7/4 because apparently we had the same ones. But this is one that I really want to share with you guys because when we started to do this, and I think we only did this like last year, that's like when so many things like kind of fell into alignment. And that is like talk about your visions and goals together, but also have your own personal goal and vision too. So talk about your vision and goals together, but also have your own personal goal and vision too. So when you become married, like it's awesome. It's kind of feels like you're like just connected, right? And it's awesome to talk about goals. I remember sitting down with you inside of the coffee shop going, hey, like what is it you want to create together, right? What is it that if we were to paint a picture of like at the end of the year, all of these awesome things happen, like what would that look like? What would success of this year look like? And we kind of like reverse engineer that into like what you would be doing, what I would be doing and all this kind of stuff. And it's super powerful if you are not like incorporating each other into each other's like goals and visions and what it's going to actually look like. Because typically in a marriage, or typically even in like business, if you have two business partners, one is like that visionary, right? Where they're like, they come up with like all of these great things in there. They're like, hey, this is the direction we're going. And the other one is kind of like what's called an integrator, which is they'll now reverse engineer all the steps and have the checklists and all that kind of stuff, right? And so when you marry that up two together, it's like it's an unstoppable force. But also, you get to still have your own vision and goals yourself, right? So yes, it's great to have it as a team, but also having those individual things, like really thinking about the impact that you're making with your group, with your team, that you're making in your business. Like, and when you think about that, yes, it's getting married and you have that connection, but you also are two different humans, right? You all have those purpose, that drive, that potential, right? And when you think about it together, it's awesome because you're like exponentially doing that. But at the same time, you can have your own vision, you can have your own goals, you can have your own version of success, you can have your own group that you're putting together. You can create whatever it is that you want to create. And you can also share that and be a part of the bigger vision too. It's not like an either or. It's both. It's like, how can we have both, right?
And I think it creates.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and it doesn't have to. Every one of your vision and goals does not have to involve the other person 100%. So what were we going to say?
No, just that if you do that, if you have your own vision and goals coming together, will create an even bigger, thing. So.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome when you kind of see that. I remember actually having that, like we said, in the coffee shop. And one of the things that I was kind of talking about is like, how can we exponentially grow the business so that I can retire next year and go on more trips and more vacations? And like, that's what kind of came out of last year, right? Is like, we were able to do that. We were able to 4X our business. And we went on like 4 different trips to like different places. And it was like, wow, we were actually able to not work as much and actually create more because we were able to have that visioning exercise and then thinking about, okay, what would that look like? And everything kind of like fell into alignment because we didn't have the answers of what that was going to look like, but like it just presented itself along the way, right? So I love that. Okay. We are here at the end of another episode. Do you have anything else that you want to, or anything you want to end with? No?
No, just...
Okay. Go ahead.
No, just... I should have just said, yes, I do.
Okay, go for it.
No, just for the people in the group, just like, thank you. We can't really see what, if people are commenting or anything, but, thanks for coming on here and listening to us. And for the audience, we're going to be posting this on each other's podcasts. And, we just want to thank you for being here and listening. We hope that this resonated with you and you can take some steps.
100%. And if you are listening to this on Master Your Mindset with Coach Mark, definitely follow Teresa on Organized Chaos podcast with Teresa. And I want to end with like a quote. What I've been doing is on my Monday episodes, I always have a quote that I want to share. And this quote is, leaders always believe that being successful should never come at the expense of their family. Leaders always believe that being successful should never come at the expense of their family. And that's why you guys are listening. 100% believe that. So thank you guys so much for making it on to an end of another podcast. If you enjoyed this one, share it, rate and review it, do all that great stuff. We appreciate you, and we will see you guys on the next episode.